All right, good morning, guys. Welcome to another day of school from home. This morning I'm going to throw out a little resource to you. Right now it's kind of a stressful time for a lot of us. We mentioned this before. Whether it's your little brother bugging you or your neighbors or just the overwhelming weight of a global pandemic, we all need to find some place that we can go to that's emotionally safe and comfortable and calm, and this is a skill that you're going to need for the rest of your life. It's just a life skill, and even when there's not a global pandemic, we've got to figure out how to calm ourselves and get ourselves to a safe place in the middle of work, in the middle of relationships. This is something you'll need for the rest of your life. So figure out something with that. One resource I'm going to throw out to you today is called Mind Yeti. They have an app, they've got a website, but really you can just go to the YouTube and I'll link a video to that for you, which just is some breathing techniques, some closing your eyes, listening to your breath, and kind of finding that inner calm that will help you when you're really stressed out. So give it a shot, try it out. Not an assignment, optional, totally optional, but I think you'll find it useful. Okay, today's lesson, I'm going to talk today about the election of 1860. This was an important election, and during the election we had three major political divisions. There was the Northern Democrats, the Southern Democrats, and then the Republicans. Northern Democrats, they had their platform was popular sovereignty. Let the territories, let the states decide for themselves what they're going to do about slavery. It's all about slavery. The hinge platform for everybody in this election was, what are you going to do about slavery? Slavery is a big issue. We've been battling it for years. How are you going to solve it? The Northern Democrats said that we're going to do popular sovereignty. Anyone who is in that territory or that state can vote and decide what it's going to be. Their candidate was Stephen Douglas. The Southern Democrats, their approach was to legalize it. They said keep slavery legal wherever people want it. So it doesn't matter which state or which territory it is, it should be legal. Their candidate was John C. Breckinridge. The Republicans said, no, we don't want to stop it. We don't want it. We have it. It's already out there, but we're going to stop it from spreading. So we'll leave it like you guys in the South. You've got your cotton plantations. You're already using slavery. That's fine. You guys keep up with that. We're just not going to let it go into any new territories, any new states. We're not going to let it spread. They said maybe in the future we'll abolish it altogether, but not right now. Of course, the Southerners didn't trust that. They expected, well, that means at some point you're going to make it illegal for us, and we don't want that. We want to know that we can rely on this source of income for the rest of our generations, because remember, cotton was huge in the South. Cotton was huge for the United States in general. The cotton exports of as far as how much we exported to other countries was larger than anything else that we sent out there for the whole United States. So those Republicans that wanted to leave slavery where it was, their candidate was Abraham Lincoln. There was a fourth party involved. That was the Constitutional Union Party, and their approach to slavery was ignore it. We're not going to take a stand on the issue. We're just going to say we'll believe in the Constitution and keeping the Union together. That was their approach, which didn't work out so well. But their candidate was John Bell. They said the Constitution of the country, the Union of the States, and the enforcement of the laws, which I think anyone would agree with, but it didn't really solve the problem. So, the results of the election, Lincoln won. You knew that. But Lincoln won. He got 40% of the popular vote, which isn't really impressive, but he got 60% of the electoral college vote, which is really what made it a success for him. Remember, most of the population was in the North, so whether you're going with the popular vote or the electoral vote, most of the weight of that, most of the clout, most of the power came from the North. For example, New York had 35 electoral votes, and South Carolina had 8 So if you look at how many votes each state got, and I'll put a link to that for you in the notes, you can take a look and see that even with the most populated states in the South, you were going to have a hard time voting against somebody that was winning in, say, somewhere in the North, like New York, that had 35 electoral votes. So now, what you want to know from this is, why was the election of 1860 important? For the South, it meant you saw someone who opposed slavery. We knew going into the election that Abraham Lincoln opposed slavery. Now, he said in his platform that he wasn't going to abolish it, he was just going to stop it from spreading. But if you see someone that's going into office that opposes slavery, and you rely on slavery, you're feeling that your needs are not being met. You feel you aren't being represented. And that's the problem here. The South was agricultural, with an economy heavily dependent on slave labor for growing cotton. It also was important because it marked a long history of presidents trying to solve the slavery crisis. 1860, we started with the Compromise of 1850, 10 years before, right? All right, so who would solve this problem for the nation? That's what we wanted to know as a result of this election. Take it back to the Compromise of 1850, President Millard Fillmore. He did the Compromise of 1850 and the Fugitive Slave Law, which we can go into more detail later, but that was an effort at compromise. Like, okay, you guys can have your slaves in the South. Oh, they keep escaping? Okay, well, we'll enable the Fugitive Slave Law, where if they escape, then you can come get them. We'll support you in that. Unfortunately, that's one of those things where the laws of one region start crossing over into the laws of another. Franklin Pierce, the Kansas-Nebraska Act. That was a disaster. That was bloody. James Buchanan, he trusted that the Dred Scott ruling, we talked about this yesterday, the Dred Scott ruling was going to determine once and for all, the Supreme Court says that slavery is something that can be in just one state or in all the states. And that didn't make it clear. That made people angry if you were a northern abolitionist, and happy if you were a southern slaveholder. So we had not found any of these compromise solutions making the problem better. In fact, it was making it worse. So your questions for the day is just one. Think about this. Why was the election of 1860 important? You should be able to write a paragraph about this. I'm not going to ask you to, but think about it. Your goals for the day: log into both Schoology and the new Google Classroom for your individual classes, and then answer the Fort Sumter questions if you haven't already. Some of you guys are answering those questions. A little feedback on that. Some of you guys are answering those questions with 1 or 2 sentences, and I'm asking for 6, so beef it up. Things that you can add to that. Tell me a little bit more about what you know about the North and the South. So you might be telling me a little bit about why Fort Sumter was important, but you can also add to that other details that relate to it, because Fort Sumter is in the South. You can tell me what you know about the South. I'll do another video a little bit more about how to beef up those answers. It's a good skill to have for high school also. So use chapter 14 for these resources, and my lecture as resources. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll talk to you soon.